Live from Augustana College, this is WOG FM Radioactive. I am your host, Joe McCoy, and you are listening to the JoeDaBears Football Show. Today we will be going over the 4 divisional round football games in the NFL. We had the Chiefs versus the Texans, the Titans versus the Ravens, the 49ers versus the Vikings, and we had the Packers versus the Seattle Seahawks. We had 4 very entertaining games. Some were closer than others, but can't complain too much from a divisional round. We had upsets. We had nail biters. We had a realm of everything this divisional round. So jumping right into it to what was definitely the biggest comeback of the divisional round is we had the Chiefs beating the Texans 51-31 in Kansas City, in a game where the Texans jumped out to a 24-0 lead in the second quarter. And after that, the Chiefs offense just wouldn't let up. They had 4 touchdowns in a row. They had 41 unanswered points. And it was just an onslaught from the Chiefs offense once they went down 24-0. So starting with the Houston stats, Deshaun Watson in this game was 31 for 52 for 388 yards and 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. And this, I think, is one of the most deceiving stat lines that you could have, because I truly believe that almost all of these stats are padded stats, garbage time stats where he's trying to come back in the game. And I know this isn't going to be a very popular opinion, but I really think that Deshaun Watson right now is the most overhyped quarterback in the National Football League. Every time I watch the guy play, it seems like he either always gets down and then has to do some big comeback, or the reason they're kind of winning games isn't always because of him. And I think that the media makes it look like it's always because of him, but when you look at the beginning of this game, when the Texans got up 24-0, one of their touchdowns was on a blocked punt. So that's 7 points right there. Another one of their touchdowns came when Tyreek Hill fumbled a punt at the 5-yard line. So they had to go 5 yards to get a touchdown. That's almost an automatic touchdown. So that's 14 points right there. Their field goal came on a drive where they started at the 50-yard line. So you had to get I think they got about 25, 30 yards. They got to the 20, ended up not going for it on a 4th and 1, which is a very interesting call by Bill O'Brien. They ended up kicking the field goal, but it wasn't like they had to drive down the field to get the field goal. They needed about 20 yards to get into field goal range. And then the one touchdown that came on a real drive, which was on the Texans' opening drive, Kenny Stills was open on this play by probably 20 to 25 yards. After he caught the ball, which was he literally just ran a seam route right up the middle. Watson had no pressure on his face. The man could have made the throw with his eyes closed. He threw the ball about 15, 20 yards to Kenny Stills. Once he caught the ball at the 30-yard line, from when he ran from the 30-yard line to the end zone, not one Chiefs defender got inside the camera view. That's how wide open he was. So it wasn't like it was a great play call. It was a great play call. They faked the bubble screen, which on the first play of the game, they ran the bubble screen to DeAndre Hopkins and got like 2 yards. So they faked the bubble screen. It was 3rd and 1. It truly was a great play call. But it wasn't like Deshaun Watson made some amazing throw on this play. He literally threw the ball 15 yards right down the middle of the field with no one within 20 yards of Kenny Stills. So it wasn't like he made some amazing play to get them going. It was a great play call. Yes, he made the throw, but nothing any quarterback in the NFL makes that throw. So they go up 24-0, but none of it was really because of anything Watson was doing. The reason they were able to go up 24-0 was because the Chiefs had 4 drop passes in the first quarter, 2 of which could have gone for huge gains. Demarcus Robinson dropped a deep slant over the middle that if he catches that ball, he's possibly taking that to the crib because of how fast he is. And so the Chiefs had 4 drop balls. One of them Kelsey dropped on. It was an easy first down, literally just hit right off his hands. So that's why the Chiefs weren't scoring any points. And then you have 2 special teams mistakes by the Chiefs, and the Texans jump out 24-0. But how, as a quarterback, you allow the opposing team to score 41 unanswered points? It would have been 42, but the Kansas City Chiefs missed an extra point. How you allow the opposing team to score 42 points and you don't score anything, that has to be put on the shoulders of the quarterback. And obviously Deshaun Watson isn't playing defense. He's not the one giving up the points, but he's not able to respond, and I feel like that narrative isn't getting put out there. The only narrative that people are putting of Deshaun Watson in this game is that, he almost threw for 400 yards, he threw 2 touchdowns, he completed 31 passes. It's like, yeah, the reason he threw for almost 400 yards, because after his team got up 24-0, which wasn't because of him, he couldn't come back once the Chiefs got the lead. The Chiefs were up 28-24 at half. And when they came out at halftime, the Chiefs just kept pouring it on. And the Texans had absolutely no answer. Watson couldn't get anything going on offense. And I just don't understand why he's praised so much. We saw in the Buffalo game, Deshaun Watson played good for 17 minutes of that game. The Texans had 0 points until 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Yes, he orchestrated a great fourth quarter comeback. The Bills also choked, as they historically have their entire franchise. But when I'm looking at a game and watching a game, if a dude has one good quarter, that doesn't mean he had a good game. And it kind of baffles me how the media likes to portray him as Superman, as someone who he gets his team and he carries his team to victory. It's like the only reason he carried his team to victory against the Bills was because he allowed his team to get down by 16 points. Like, why don't we talk about Deshaun Watson not being able to score for the first basically 3 whole quarters? And it's, you can't use the excuse of not having weapons. He has Kenny Stills, Will Fuller, and the best receiver in the game in DeAndre Hopkins. So you can't use the excuse of he doesn't have wide receivers. And then you could say, well, his offensive line isn't that great, but they just traded away 2 first-round picks in the middle of the season to get Larry Tunsil, who's one of the best left tackles in the game. And, yes, the Texans don't have a perfect offensive line, but it's about middle of the pack. So it's not that he has a horrible offensive line. It's not that he doesn't have weapons. It's that I feel like he just fails on a lot of drives to get things going, and then he has to play hero ball at the end, and all people seem to see is those couple of games where he plays hero ball, and they think, wow, this guy's an amazing quarterback, he makes amazing plays, and it's like, yeah, the only reason he has to make those plays is because he got his team in a hole early. And I really don't understand all the hype around Deshaun Watson. Maybe I haven't watched him enough, but all the games I watch him, especially playoff games, he doesn't seem to show up in a way that's consistent. And people could say, well, Patrick Mahomes didn't play good for the first quarter and a half in this game, but that's really not true. His receivers played terrible. Mahomes was making the throws. His receivers just had, I think it was 6 drops in this game total, 4 in the first quarter. So that's obviously not on Mahomes. That's just on his receivers. So people are trying to, some people try to say that Watson's better than Mahomes. And I really think that argument is just, there's no backing behind it. Just because Deshaun Watson can sometimes make hero scramble plays and get out of the pocket does not mean he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Now, some people definitely consider him that, but I just really don't see it from Deshaun Watson. And I think that he refuses to throw the ball away, which leads to a lot more sacks. In this game, he got sacked 4 times. 2 of them were when he's in the pocket for about 10 seconds, literally running circles around his offensive line. And it's like, when your quarterback is running circles, the offensive lineman cannot block a defender and do a spin move. Like, he can't block him in all directions. As an offensive lineman, you're kind of blocking one guy in one direction and trying to turn him different ways. But when you have no idea where your quarterback is, the defender who's watching the quarterback can shimmy out of your block really easily, because you're not going to be able to block him if he tries to run to the right or the left. So a lot of his blitzes come when he fails to get out of the pocket, and instead of just stepping up and either checking the ball down, or as he realizes within 5 seconds that, oh crap, no one's open, there are rushes on me, I'm just going to throw the ball away, he just runs around in the pocket and then ends up getting sacked. So I really feel like the media and analysis failed to point out his flaws, and just look at the hero ball he plays and thinks that it covers up for everything. So it's kind of a hot take, but that's really how I feel about Deshaun Watson. I've never seen him be like Mahomes. And, Mahomes in this game when the Chiefs offense got rolling, and Mahomes in this game was 23 for 35 for 321 yards, 9 yards a pass, and 5 touchdowns. And when this Chief offense got rolling and they scored the first touchdown, and then the Texans went for it on the fake punt. And I know a lot of people are going to say that was a bad call. It's a bad call because it didn't work. But, Tony Romo, he was saying that he actually didn't really mind that call. And I agreed with him because the Chiefs were starting to build momentum. They had the touchdown. They just got a 3-and-out. And I understand it's an extremely risky call. And obviously it didn't work out in this case. But the Texans got the look they wanted. The Chiefs had no edge rushers really on the outside, and the only thing that a Chiefs defender could have done was make a one-on-one open field tackle, and you have to give the dude a ton of credit. He made that tackle, and it's a great defensive play. Yes, looking back on it, should they have punted the ball? Of course we're going to say that, but if you get the first down there, and even if you don't end up scoring points, getting a field goal or touchdown on the drive, you still kind of killed the momentum because you got a first down. Maybe you got another first down and kind of pinned them deep in the 10-yard line with a punt or something like that. But it didn't work. And then 3 plays later, the Chiefs score another touchdown. Now it's 24-14, and the game was over after that. The Chiefs scored another touchdown. They scored another touchdown before half to go up 28-24, and you just knew unless there was some huge collapse by the Chiefs that they were not going to lose that game. Once that offense got rolling, there was no one who's going to stop them, especially a Texans defense that does not have a good secondary. They have a mediocre pass rush that has gotten worse when JoeDaBears Clowney went to the Seahawks. J.J. Watt isn't fully healthy coming off of his pec injury, and there was no one on that Texans team who was going to stop Patrick Mahomes in that offense. So, Travis Kelce in this game was an absolute monster. He had 10 receptions for 134 yards and 3 touchdowns. One of his touchdowns came after he was slightly injured in the game. They were talking about possibly sitting him for the rest of the game, but he came back, scored another touchdown, and you just see how valuable a tight end like Travis Kelce is to an offense. Especially, Travis Kelce is arguably the best tight end in the league. The top 3 are him, Kittle, and Ertz. And you just see, I don't want to make a Mahomes-Mitch comparison, but you see how effective a good tight end can be in an offense, and kind of that security blanket where on that 3rd and 3, that 3rd and 5, Kelsey's he's gonna catch that ball. He's gonna win. He's gonna get he's gonna win his route, and he's gonna box out the defender and make the catch. And that's what this Bears offense was missing so much this year, with Trey Burton out basically the entire year, Adam Shaheen being an entire bust, and Ben Broniker and Jesper Horsted being our 2 tight ends who have very little experience in the NFL. So you just see how important a really good tight end can be to an offense and how valuable it is. I also thought that the Chiefs defense, they played pretty well in this game. 14 of the points that the Texans scored were given up basically because of special teams. 7 were directly off of that on the punt block for a touchdown, and then the other one, as I stated, the Texans offense got the ball at the 5-yard line, so there's basically nothing the defense can do in that situation. But once the Chiefs offense got going, their defense really settled in, and they only gave up 7 points for the last 40 minutes of the game. So the Houston Texans scored 24 points within the first 20 minutes of the game, but after that they only scored 1 more touchdown. And the Chiefs defense has really come along this second half of the season. In the beginning of the year, they were having historically bad numbers in terms of the amount of yards they were giving up, the amount of points, but you got to give huge props to their defensive coordinator. Their defense have really settled in. Tyrann Mathieu has been a huge leader for them in the secondary, and with how explosive their offense is, their defense doesn't need to be great. It just needs to be average, and they're playing if average, if not a little bit above average right now. So they're definitely, this is what's making the Chiefs a Super Bowl contender. It's going to be extremely interesting in the AFC Championship to see if this Chiefs defense is able to stop Derrick Henry and the Titans. Derrick Henry is the hottest runner in the NFL right now. He set an NFL record for 380 rushing yards in 2 playoff games. That's an absolutely astronomical number. And like I said, the Chiefs defense is playing good right now. They're definitely not a great unit. And I know that their defensive line isn't as strong as it used to be. They got rid of D Ford. And it's going to be really interesting to see if they're able to contain Derrick Henry and slow him down. Because if they go down 14-0, 21-0 against the Titans, there's no coming back. The Titans will kill that clock with Derrick Henry. He'll run you over. He'll run through you. And there's no way you're going to be able to come back from a deficit like that against the Titans. So if Derrick Henry runs like he did against the Patriots and against the Ravens, I give them an extremely good shot to win this game. And it's also going to be interesting to see if this Titans defense, which played extremely well against the Baltimore Ravens, especially their secondary, they made a couple of huge plays. They were playing extremely tight coverage. It's going to be interesting to see if they're able to stop this explosive Chiefs offense, which was on full display in this game. So moving on to the next game in the AFC, we had the Tennessee Titans beating the Baltimore Ravens 28-12, and what was definitely the biggest upset of this week, possibly of the postseason. You could argue that the Vikings upset over the Saints was a little bit bigger, but the Titans offense and defense did exactly what they needed to do in this game. The legend of Derrick Henry, this regular season with him winning the rushing title, beating out Nick Chubb, and now in the postseason, it's continuing. Derrick Henry had 195 rushing yards in this game on 30 carries, which is a 6.5 yards per carry average. And he also threw a touchdown pass to Corey Davis, which was it's pretty crazy to see a guy as big as Derrick Henry to get the snap, do a little jump pass. And it was a beautiful pass to Corey Davis. I know it was only 3 yards, but he put it high where he needed to be in the back of the end zone, and Corey Davis came down for the touchdown. So Derrick Henry was unstoppable again in this game. And once the Titans went up 14-0, they just rode Henry for the rest of the game. He's just so good. He's so good at chewing clock. And it feels like when the Titans get up with the lead and they need to kill clock, it's like automatic that they're going to kill at least 4 or 5 minutes. Because it's so hard in 3 plays to stop Derrick Henry from getting 10 yards. In this game, as I said, he averaged 6.5 yards a carry. And with how dominant the Titans' offensive line is being right now, it's impossible to stop him if he gets 3 rushes to hold him less than 10 yards. I know the Ravens were able to do it like once, maybe twice, but he just, as the game goes along and you need that running back who can chew clock, he is the perfect back for it. No one wants to tackle Derrick Henry. Earl Thomas, you were lying when you said that the Ravens were going to tackle Derrick Henry, and you said it looked like the Patriots weren't interested in him. Well, he stiff-armed you and turned you into a lead blocker, so it didn't really look like you wanted to tackle him either. So no one on that Chiefs defense is going to want to tackle Derrick Henry, and if he does what he did against the Ravens, these Tennessee Titans might be in the Super Bowl. So Ryan Tannehill in this game basically did exactly what he did against the Patriots. He was 7 for 14 for 88 yards and 2 touchdown passes, which, by the way, were absolutely dimes by Ryan Tannehill. I know he only threw the ball 14 times. I know he had less than 100 passing yards, but his 2 touchdown passes were absolutely beautiful. The deep ball that he threw to Khalif Raymond, who only had 9 receptions all season, it was an absolutely gorgeous pass, and huge props to Khalif Raymond, who ran an absolutely amazing post route. He completely fooled the defender. He went out, came back in, defender was doing circles, and he made an absolutely amazing over-the-shoulder catch. But Ryan Tannehill put the ball exactly where it needed to be in the end zone, over his shoulder, and Khalif Raymond made a great catch. Jonnu Smith had the other touchdown pass from Ryan Tannehill, which was an absolutely unbelievable one-handed catch. And Jonnu Smith is the 3rd tight end on this Tennessee Titans roster, but he made an absolutely amazing one-handed catch with his left hand in the end zone, and he was able to get his butt down, which counts as 2 feet, and it was pretty amazing to see a guy. It wasn't even bad coverage. The cornerback was playing it tight, but Tannehill put it high where his tight end had the height advantage, and Jonnu Smith made an absolutely amazing one-handed catch. The real key in this game, besides the Tennessee Titans offense, was their defense's ability to stop the Ravens on 4th and 1. They stopped them on 4th and 1 twice, both on which Lamar Jackson was trying to do a QB sneak, and the Baltimore Ravens were 7 for 7 in the regular season on 4th and 1s, and the Tennessee Titans were able to stop them twice in this game, and it really was a difference maker. One of them, the Titans were at the Ravens were at the 25-yard line. They could have kicked a field goal with Justin Tucker. They decided that they were going to go for it. They get stopped. Huge momentum swing, and that really was the difference. These Titans were able to make huge defensive stops against the most mobile quarterback in the NFL. And plays like that, it's not only that you're stopping them and getting good field position, but just the momentum that a play like that creates. Your entire team gets fired up. It deflates the entire home crowd. And it's kind of, as a Ravens offense, you're like, wait, we were perfect on these throughout the whole year. This has worked every single time throughout the regular season, and all of a sudden it's not working. So it's completely deflating for an offense, and those are truly game-changing plays. Lamar Jackson in this game was 31 for 59 for 365 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. And again, these were pretty inflated numbers, but the biggest statistic to me is that 59 passing attempts. That is an astronomical number for a quarterback who is known for his running. Obviously, he's had amazing passing stats this year as well, but no quarterback should throw the ball 59 times. I don't care if you're Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. You should never get close to that number. And it's also crazy because Lamar ran the ball 20 times in this game. So Lamar Jackson counted for 79 of the Ravens' 88 total plays. 20 of them he did on the ground. 59 of them he did through the air. One player cannot beat an entire NFL team, and that's what we saw in this game. Lamar Jackson, who will be he is the runaway MVP. He will win MVP this year, as he should. No matter how good he was throughout the regular season and how kind of okay he was in this game, he wasn't great. He kind of tried to play Superman ball. But no matter how good you are as a quarterback, you're not able to beat a team by yourself, and that's what Lamar Jackson and the Ravens basically tried to do with these Titans. A big reason why the Ravens offense struggled so much and was only able to generate 12 points in this game is because they were not able to run the ball efficiently. This was mainly due to Mark Ingram, who was fighting a calf injury. And Ingram in this game was limited to only 6 carries for 22 yards. So, the Ravens, which had the number 1 rushing attack in the league, they were a run-first offense. They had the best offensive line in the league. When you're not able to run the ball, your whole system gets out of whack. And, they went down 14-0. So obviously you're playing from a hole, and when you're down by 2 touchdowns like that, you feel like you have to pass the ball more, and they weren't able to get into a rhythm that they did all year in the regular season. Lamar Jackson was still able to rush for 143 yards in this game. A lot of these rushes did come when the Titans were kind of playing prevent defense. They were up by 16 points. Against the Ravens, so they're kind of playing back, making sure they didn't get beat by a deep ball by Hollywood Brown or Willie Snead or something like that. So, they left a lot of kind of running lanes open for Lamar. Rushing for 143 yards as a quarterback is still a really high number, but it wasn't enough to penetrate this Titans defense. The Titans defense as well throughout the game, they did a really good job containing Lamar. I know 143 yards looks like a lot, but when you really look at the game, especially through the first 3 quarters, they did a great job of making Lamar run left and right instead of vertically up the field. And, when Lamar runs vertically, he's almost unstoppable with his speed and his jukes and his spin move, which we saw in the Cincinnati Bengals game. He's so hard to tackle in the open field. But when you make him run laterally to the sideline, he eventually has to run out of bounds. So they did a great job containing him. And, Lamar would still get 6-7 yards on a run, but that's fine. If you're a Titans defense, you'll give that up every single time, because as long as he isn't running up the middle, getting 20, 30 yards on a rush, you'll take that. So they were able to contain him to the outside and mitigate any explosive runs by him. Moving on to the NFC games, this was probably the most unexciting game of the week, but we had the 49ers beating the Vikings 27-10. The 49ers just completely overpowered the Minnesota Vikings offensive line in this game. They generated 6 sacks and had constant pressure on Kirk Cousins all game. Cousins in this game was 21 for 29 for 172 yards, 1 touchdown and an interception. And this game can really not be put on Kirk Cousins. he was given absolutely no shot by his offensive line in this game. The 49ers pass rush just overpowered them on almost every play. Even if he wasn't getting sacked, he was under constant pressure. And, as a quarterback, there's literally nothing you can do in that situation when you have guys rushing you from both sides. Nick Bosa in this game was an absolute beast. He generated 2 sacks and he had 6 solo tackles. So the dude, I think he'll definitely be defensive rookie of the year. I don't know if they do just one rookie of the year, but he definitely should be defensive rookie of the year, and he's lived up to all the hype and more in his rookie season. The Vikings did not generate any run game at all in this game, and this was kind of the main factor why their offense wasn't able to get it going. They had a total of 21 rushing yards on 10 carries, which is an abysmally low number, to only average 2.1 yards a carry in an offense that I don't want to say is built around Dalvin Cook, but when Dalvin Cook is going as he was in the Saints game, he really is the heartbeat of that offense, and it opens up the play action game for Thielen and Diggs and get those receivers going deep. But when you only can rush for 21 yards, you have no chance in the NFL, and that was on full display in this game. The only big play from the Vikings in this game was a 41-yard touchdown catch by Stephon Diggs, who I think is one of the most underrated receivers in the league. I know that people know he's good, but he's not really considered in that kind of elite top-tier category. But every time I watch the Minnesota Vikings, and I watch them a lot because they're in our division, but the dude just makes so many big plays. He's such a deep threat. His deep ball tracking is arguably best in the league, and that's not an exaggeration. The way he tracks the deep ball and is able to read it over his shoulder is just amazing. And his 41-yard touchdown catch, he completely bodied the cornerback, got position, caught the ball, and ran into the end zone. But that was the only offense that the Vikings were able to generate all game. This play came in the first quarter, and it tied the game up 7-7. But after that, they weren't able to get anything else going. The Vikings offense only generated 7 first downs all game, and you're obviously not going to win a football game doing that. You got to give a lot of props to the 49ers defense, who all of a sudden is healthy, and I didn't realize how many key injuries they had on defense, but when healthy, this team is absolutely unstoppable. They had Dee Ford back in this game, who made a big difference. They had their middle linebacker, Quan Alexander, back. He barely played in this game, but he should be good for the NFC Championship against the Packers. But when they have all of their pass rushers going at one time, they're an almost unstoppable defensive line. There's so many first-round picks on that line. Solomon Thomas, who was picked after Mitch Trubisky, 3rd overall, is a backup on this defensive line. And I know he hasn't lived up to his number 3 overall expectations, but still, to have a first-round guy who's picked 3rd overall to be a backup is it's a pretty nice luxury to have. So this 49ers defense, when healthy, is, in my opinion, this year the best in the league. Jimmy G in this game truly was just a game manager. He only threw the ball 19 times. He had 11 completions for 131 yards with a touchdown and an interception. But that was all he really needed to do in this game. They had a really good running game going with Tevin Coleman, who rushed for 105 yards on 22 carries, and he also had 2 touchdowns. But the 49ers, they didn't really need to pass the ball that much. And I think that they don't have an Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes where you kind of trust him 24/7. I think Jimmy G definitely is prone to mistakes, as we have seen in certain games. And I think that since they didn't really have a reason to throw the ball, they didn't fully feel comfortable doing that, because when you throw the ball, obviously, you're taking a risk of him throwing an interception. So they were controlling the clock with the run game. It was working really well, and Jimmy G just kind of had to manage the game, not make any big mistakes, and that's exactly what he did. So, I think the 49ers kind of had that luxury where Jimmy G, if you need him to play hero and you need him to put up 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, he can do that. And we saw that when they played Seattle, and we also saw that when they played the Saints. Jimmy G stepped in the big boy shoes, and he played an amazing quarterback performance. But in a game like this, where they didn't really need him, he could just kind of sit back, hand the ball off, make a couple of key throws, and that's all he needed to do. So it'll be interesting in the NFC Championship against the Packers if they need him to play hero ball. Not necessarily hero ball, but if they need him to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. We're not sure how much this Packers offense is going to be able to put up against this 49ers defense, but it's going to be interesting to see how big of a role Jimmy G is going to need to have. So moving on to the last game of the week, and what was a nail-biter, it came all the way down to the wire. We had, unfortunately, as a Bears fan, the Green Bay Packers beat the Seattle Seahawks 28-23 in Lambeau Field, and the Packers are now 1 game away from the Super Bowl. And I know that the 49ers demolished them last time they played, but it's 1 game, and in the NFL, 1 game is all it takes to break a season or make a season. And if the 49ers don't come out to play on Sunday, these Green Bay Packers very much well could be in the Super Bowl, which, as a Bears fan, I don't even want to think about right now. But getting into this game, Aaron Rodgers was extremely efficient. He had arguably his best game of the year. He was 16 for 27, 243 yards, 9 yards per attempt, and 2 touchdowns. And he made a couple of Aaron Rodgers-esque throws. I hate the dude, but I can't criticize his game. He's one of the best to ever do it. And when the Green Bay Packers needed a big throw in this game, he made every single one. The big stat in this game was the Packers' ability to convert on third down. Rodgers on third down was 8 for 10 for 139 yards, and he also had 7 first downs. And the Packers' offense as a whole was 9 for 14 on third down. So the Seahawks' defense was unable to get off the field on third down, and that was what killed them. It's what killed them on the last drive, and it's what killed them throughout the entire game. So you saw in what was basically the game-sealing play, it was a 3rd and 8, I believe, and after the game, Scott Van Pelt was interviewing Davante Adams, and he said that Adams said that he was initially supposed to run a slant route, but since the safety, they had 2 deep safeties, so he knew that one of the safeties was going to come to the middle of the field, so Rodgers checked it to more of an outside, kind of like a fade route. Davante is one of the best route runners in the league, gave a little quick in, broke out, Rodgers made a perfect throw, and that basically was the end of the game. So you see Rodgers, his ability to read defenses, to make the checks at the line of scrimmage, to put his players in the best position to win, and that's what they did in this game. So the Packers offense also had a pretty decent rushing attack. They ran for 102 yards as a team, and Aaron Jones had 2 rushing touchdowns. So it wasn't a crazy rushing performance, but they did enough. They kept the offense efficient, and they kind of relied on the arm of Aaron Rodgers in this game. So the Packers offense had an extremely strong pass rush in this game, generating 5 sacks, and most of the pressure was led by they call them the Smith brothers in Green Bay, but Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, they each had 2 sacks, and they were able to generate constant pressure on Russell Wilson all night, who we know is so good at escaping in the pocket, but they were able to contain him for the most part, and getting 5 sacks was really a key in this game. The play of Davante Adams cannot go unnoticed. The dude is a top 5 receiver in the NFL, but he had 8 receptions for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. With the 160 yards was a Packers postseason record, which actually I was a little surprised to hear because they've had a lot of great receivers in the history with Greg Jennings, Donald Driver. There's one other name I'm looking for, but they've had some pretty good receivers in their in their history who've played a lot of postseason games with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. So to hear that 160 receiving yards was a Packers postseason record was a little interesting to hear. But Davante Adams he's such a stud in the league. He's obviously Aaron Rodgers' #1 target, and their chemistry and trust with one another is unbreakable right now. So I was thinking, for the 49ers game, for the NFC Championship, the 49ers they're going to try to put Richard Sherman on Davante Adams, but Richard Sherman is not a slot corner. He plays outside. So the Packers really like to put Davante Adams in the slot. They had him in the slot for 25% of the plays this year. So it's going to be interesting to see. Davante Adams might play in the slot 50, 60, 70% of this game, just so he's not guarded by Richard Sherman. So it's going to be interesting to see what each team does with that. I don't think that Richard Sherman will come in and play in the slot just because playing nickel corner and playing outside corners. Not a completely different position, but it's a pretty big difference. So I think that the Packers are going to have to move Davante Adams inside just so he has a more favorable matchup. Russell Wilson in this game was 21 for 31 for 277 yards and a touchdown. He really did all he could in this game. Russell Wilson, he is the heartbeat of the Seattle Seahawks team, and with both of their running backs being on IR with Chris Carson and CJ Prosise, they weren't really able to generate that much of a running game with Marshawn Lynch. Wilson was the Seattle Seahawks leading rusher with 64 yards on 7 carries, and the rest of the team only had 46 rushing yards. Marshawn Lynch did get 2 rushing touchdowns inside the 2-yard line, but Russell Wilson on offense, he was having to do it almost all by himself. He made a couple of amazing plays. I absolutely love Tyler Lockett, who does not get enough recognition in the league. But for a dude who's 5'10", 182 pounds, Tyler Lockett can make every catch in the book. He can run every route in the book. And in this game, he had 9 catches for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Tyler Lockett is one of the toughest receivers I have seen in the league with how small he is. He'll go across the middle. He's not afraid to take a big hit. And he's also just an extremely dangerous deep threat down the field. So I think that if Russell Wilson was given another chance in this game, if the Seattle defense was able to get off the field, he could have had one more quintessential Russell Wilson drive, but it wasn't meant to be. The Seattle Seahawks couldn't stop the Packers on 4th down, and that was the difference in the game. No team turned the ball over in this game, so it was a very clean game in that regard. And all of the stats were actually extremely even. The time of possession was basically 50-50, and all of the team stats were almost equivalent. Seattle outgained the Packers by 31 yards, but that was honestly the real only difference in the team stats, offensive-wise. So it was an extremely even matchup, and the Seahawks, they just weren't able to get the ball in Russell Wilson's hands one more time to try to make a game-winning drive. It's going to be really interesting to see if the Packers can get offense going against the 49ers. We saw in their first matchup how dominant the 49ers were. They sacked Rodgers 5 times in the last meeting, which was week 11, and the 49ers had 12 tackle for losses in that game. So the 49ers defense was absolutely they were just dominant in that game. They held Rodgers to only 104 passing yards, which is crazy for a guy who's such a talented thrower of the ball. But it's going to be interesting to see if this Packers O-line will be able to hold up. They're going to have to do a lot of pass protection, and I think if the Packers aren't able to get a running game going with Aaron Jones, and the 49ers D-line is able to stuff up the run game, they're going to have an extremely hard time running this game because, the 49ers have talented cornerbacks. They have Richard Sherman, who's a lockdown. They have really good linebackers with Quan Alexander. And I think that if the Packers aren't able to get a running game going, they're not going to be able to just throw the ball all down the field. So, in that last matchup, I believe the 49ers won, I think it was 38-7. They absolutely just destroyed them on Sunday Night Football. So, the Packers will be looking for revenge, but you also know that the 49ers will be coming in this game with confidence, knowing that they already completely obliterated this team, and they believe that they have every right to believe that they'll do it again. So it's going to be an extremely interesting matchup. In God's name, I pray that the 49ers win this game. I cannot watch the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl. That would be way too much anxiety, having to worry about the Packers winning the Super Bowl. All of my Packers friends and social media, I don't need to see any Packers fans posting pictures of them winning the Super Bowl. So please, 49ers, win this game. And on the AFC side of the ball, I think the best matchup in the Super Bowl would be Chiefs versus 49ers, that prolific offense versus that dominating defense. But I'm rooting for the Tennessee Titans, baby. Tighten up. I'm rooting for Derrick Henry. I'm rooting for Ryan Tannehill. I hope the Tennessee Titans win the Super Bowl. as long as the Green Bay Packers win, that's all I really care about. I would be happy if the 49ers, Chiefs, or Titans win the Super Bowl. All three of those franchises haven't won it in an extremely long time. But I'm rooting for the underdog, the Tennessee Titans, who are going to ride Derrick Henry all the way to a championship. And it's going to be an extremely good championship weekend. Two very interesting matchups. And I hope we get some really good games. So thank you all for listening to the JoeDaBears Football Show. I'll be here next Tuesday, same time, to talk about the championship games and discuss what I think will happen in the Super Bowl. Thank you all for listening.